Yeah, so hi guys. So let's start with the workshop. So like just introduction about myself. Like I'm Shiv, one of the core contributor at Build Guild and also maintainer of Scaffold-ETH. So like Scaffold-ETH is basically a framework built on top of Solidity framework like Hardhat or Foundry. And so basically it has two parts. Like one is Solidity framework part, which consists of Hardhat and Foundry, and front end part, which consists of NextJS, RainbowKit, and Wagmi, like which are the latest tool stack of Ethereum. So to get started with Scaffold-ETH, like you could come to scaffold.io and you could see the website and you could copy this command and just run it on your terminal. So like once you run it on a terminal, like it should ask you for the name of the app. So let's call it ETHIndia 2024, like 24, and you can choose between Hardhat and Foundry. So let's create Foundry. Like I already did this step, so like we are fast on time. So like I already did this step, and once you do this step, like you would get this kind of a UI. So like I created an app called ETHIndia 24 demo. I selected Foundry, and after initialization, it should give you these steps. Like next step is to go to CD into ETHIndia 24 directory and do all these three commands. And you could also go to the docs of Scaffold-ETH to see like what are the steps you need to follow. So like if you go to quick start and installation, we already did this, and then there is this is how you do the stuff. So it says like initialize the local blockchain in the first terminal. So like let's do that. So for now, like I already created three terminals. So basically, when using Scaffold-ETH app, like you will be needing three terminals. Basically, three terminals are for one terminal is about running the local blockchain, like the Solidity framework part. Other terminal is to run the front end part, and the third terminal is about running some scripts. So let's follow the steps. So it says like in first terminal run a local network. So let's do that. Yarn chain is the command. So like basically doing yarn chain will start up the local anvil chain which you have, and yarn start. So what does it the next step says, like it says yarn start, and you could select foundry here, and this will deploy the contracts. Yeah, so it deployed some contract. Like let's see like what scaffold it comes with. Like if let's look at the repo, uh, what it consists of. So like you could open this in your VS Code editor or some kind of editor. Like I am using Vim here. So like scaffold it basically contains these two files like Foundry and NextJS. Like NextJS consists of all the front end part, and Foundry consists of all the Solidity framework part. So like if you see here in the contracts, like we this is the contract which we deployed, and let's look at the contract. Like this is basically a very simple contract. Like let's go through go over it quickly. Yeah, so like this contract basically has some state variables like the owner, the greeting, and then there is the event which we are logging. In the constructor, we are setting the owner, and there is a modifier which checks is owner, and then there is this set greeting function which takes in the greeting, like the new greeting, it console logs, and it also increases the counter for that. And if you send some money to the contract, like it sets this premium false to true, and then there is a normal withdraw function. But let's look at like, so we run yarn chain, we did yarn deploy, so yarn deployed the your contract, and now we do yarn start. Yarn start will basically start up your front end. So let's see like what how does the front end look. So if you go to localhost 3000, like generally Next.js apps start at that port. Yeah, so like let me disconnect. So generally like if you yarn start do you could see, right, like I'm already connected to some kind of a wallet. So this is a burner wallet which comes with scaffolding. Like basically this wallet helps you do fast tinkering on localhost, like, and in scaffolding let's go to debug contracts. So this is a page where you could iterate with your smart contract. So like you could see like the contract functions which we had in the contract, like you could see them on the UI nicely, and you could set some greetings like let's say hello world. This would fail because like I don't have any gas on local network, right? So like we also have the faucet where you could grab funds from the faucet, and this shall increase my balance locally. And now if I set the greeting, like it updates the greeting, and also it updated the total counter. Now if I send some money to the contact, like the set greeting function, you could see the premium flag goes to true. And also like now if I open a new browser, like the new incognito tab, and if I go to localhost 3000, it created a new person. Like this is for local, like these accounts are basically stored on your local storage to do some quick tinkering. So now let's try to edit some contact and see the changes. So for this demo, like I plan to build a very simple app, a kind of a ownable pattern. Like if you guys have used OpenZeppelin, like OpenZeppelin already has this built in, but we build kind of a similar thing for this thing. So like we already are setting the owner in the constructor, right? So now let's try to also have a new function called update owner, which should take in address of the owner, new owner. Let's make it public, and let's try to update the owner to new owner. And like since this is a immutable, like I need to change it now, like since we are allowing to update the owner, so let's update it. And now to again like deploy the contact, you come to the terminal and you run yarn deploy, and hopefully like on the UI, like we would see a new function called update owner, right? And you could test, like you could type in some address and see it changing. Yeah, you see like it updated the owner. But the thing is, like currently if you look at the contract, like anyone can update the owner, like anyone can set the owner, but we need to get this right. So we use require, like msg.sender needs to be the owner, and now I again deploy the contract. So that's the power of this debug contract UI. Is like you could iterate with your contract, like do some editing to the contract, come to the front end, interact, like if every logic works or not. So currently, like the owner is this guy, like 0x a0, and ideally, like I shouldn't be able to set the owner. Let's check it. Like try setting the owner to some address like etg.eth, and it says like not the owner, right? So like now we saw like how we can update the contract and also here update the things. Also like if you look at the stack, like what we do is there is this contract folder and then there is this script folder where we basically keep the deploy script. So like if you look at this deploy your contract.sol, like this is the script which is deploying the contract, and ideally what we want is initially we want this front end address to be the owner of this contract. So let's change that. Okay, I could just copy, and now if I oh sorry, and now if I do yarn deploy again, like that below, it should deploy a new contract, and now this front end address should be the initial owner, and now I could update the owner. I mean that's cool. Like now we have a basic app. Like I mean like we don't want to ship this UI to the end user. So like let's create a production UI where like a user could interact. So like I think this is kind of an admin app. So like let's create an admin view for the page. So in Scaffold-ETH, like so now we go to the front end part of the Scaffold-ETH. Like we already done the contract. Now you start writing some UI for the contract. So, since Scaffold-ETH is just basically a NextJS app, like you could just follow the NextJS. So like to create an admin page, like you create a folder admin slash page.tsx, and let me just copy the things here to page.tsx. Like let's call this admin, and let's see if we have the slash admin route. Yeah, cool. Like we already have this admin route, and like to add it to the header, like you could go to you could search here like header and add that link here. Let's just copy this and keep this as admin. let's see. Yeah, so like now we could easily navigate to the app. So like now let's create an UI for the contract which we developed. No, so like in Scaffold-ETH, like so Scaffold-ETH has a bunch of utilities to quickly build this front end things. So for reading through a contract, like if you need to read a state from the contract, like we have these hooks called use scaffold read contract hook, use scaffold write contract hook to basically write to a contract, and this follows the very similar interface to Wagmi. Let's try to maybe read the owner of the contract. So let me just clear this all stuff. And by the way, like Scaffold-ETH uses Daisy UI. If you guys heard about it, like Daisy UI is a component library for Tailwind. So like it uses Daisy UI as a component library, and you could search some components here. Like let's use the card component here. Let's just copy this. We don't need image from here. Let's see how does it look on front end. Yeah. So like now let's try to display the current owner of the contract, right? So let's change the this to admin, and let's try to get some state. Like let's try to read some state from the contract. To read some state, like you could use scaffold hooks called use scaffold contract read, use read scaffold contract hook. And the thing is now these hooks has nice auto completions. Like if I show you, like if you write the contract name, the your editor will nicely give you the auto completions for the Typescript. Like it's saying your contract, and then here you could mention the function name. Let's call now, like since it's a read hook, like it only gives me the read variables. So like let's read owner, let's call it data current owner, and let's try to display that here in this p tag. It's called cur owner. Yeah, you see, like now we are displaying, like we are reading straight from the contract and displaying it on the front end. But like I mean, this is bad. Like we are just displaying the raw string. Let's try to display a nice address component. So like for this, like we also have address component in Scaffold-ETH, which is able to nicely display the address component to the UI. So you see, and now like if I update the owner to some address which has ENS to it. Oh shit. Yeah. Let's update the owner to shivbunde.eth, and like if you go to the admin page, like it also nicely, the component nicely resolves the ENS, the name, and also the ENS profile. So like let's for now call this as I'm short on time. Let's try to and, and let's call this owner. And now now like let's suppose like we need to give admin a UI to update the owner. Like how do we do that? So like let's so to give the admin an UI to update the owner, we'll be needing an input where admin writes the address of the new owner. So like let's have a state for that. Let's call it const new owner, and again like we need some input, right? So for this, like we could use the same thing. Let's call it update owner, and again like Scaffold-ETH again has a nice utility for the address input. So like we use that, and we give on change. Let's see on the UI like what we got. Oh, I think use state is not imported, so let's import it from React. Yeah. So now we also have the nice utility to update the owner, where the admin could input like who will be the next owner. So like you could add here, and this address input component will update nicely, like resolve the ENS and show it on the UI. So now what we do is like when clicking this button, like ideally uh, this should be called change owner. And now let's try to like, ideally what we want is clicking this button should update the owner. So like now we need to write it to the contact, right? So like we use again the hook from the scaffold-ETH, use scaffold write contact hook. For here you need to give the contact name, and if you guys have used Wagmi, like it's pretty similar to Wagmi. So let's call it, yeah, let's call it write contact. Then we create a handler, const handle change owner async. Let's wrap it in try catch. And now we use that function to write to a contact. It's called write contact async. And now since we already have the contact state, now like it should give you the auto completion, like what all the read functions we have. So like we need to write to update owner, and like it also gives you an error like, hey, this function accepts an arc, so like you need to pass some arcs. So to the arcs, like we pass the new owner as the state. And now let's attach this handler to the button. On click, we call that handle change owner. Right. So let's try to set a new update owner. Yeah, I mean like I already changed the owner, so like it's saying like not the owner. So like I mean if we deploy the contact again, now ideally like my connected address should be the owner, and now we should update, able to update it uh, on the UI. Like now we change the owner to etg.eth, and hopefully this should update the owner. You see, like now we already have the UI where people could interact with nice components. Now let's try to deploy this app. I don't know like if we'll be able to do this, but let's try to deploy it to some testnet. Now like we already tested app, we already have the UI. Now we need to deploy the things. And by the way, like all these things are available on scaffolded docs. Like you could go through all these things, like where I'm saying like components, like you could see here all the components, like how to ship your app, deploying your smart contracts. So let's try to deploy it. So like for Foundry version, like we are using key store, like Foundry key store. So to do that, like you need to generate an account. So this will basically generate some Foundry key store account, and you see like it says like key store was saved, and it created this random address called 0x9b, and it says like please update your env file with key store account scaffold-ETH custom. So let's do that. So if you go to Foundry folder and .env, like here we change it to scaffold-ETH custom. So here you could change it to scaffold-ETH custom, or you could give your own key store account. So like I already have my key store account, so like I would use that. So I have called it personal, so I would use that. And you could run this yarn account. So like basically yarn account is the command which shows you the balance of your account, like which is gonna be deploying it to the mainnet. So like let's try to deploy this to Optimism Sepolia. To deploy this, like you run, oh, let me do it this. Yeah, like here to deploy this to Sepolia, like you need to run yarn deploy dash dash network Optimism Sepolia. Oh, like let's update the uh, deployer account so that we are the owner of the contract. Like let's go to deploy your contract, and let me just put my MetaMask address here as the owner. I mean, we are short on time. Let's try to deploy this. If I do yarn deploy dash dash network Optimism Sepolia, now this should ask for my key store password, and once it's done, like it would deploy it to Optimism Sepolia. And now the front end, let's look at the front end. So currently, like if you click the address component, like it goes to the, oh, I think I closed my front end. Yeah, this, so the contract is already deployed, but like currently this the front end was configured on localhost, like it was reading the contract from the localhost. But if you want to point it to now, since we have already deployed it to Optimism Sepolia, like you could go to scaffold config, and here you change the thing to Optimism Sepolia, and let's change the pooling interval to 5000 seconds. And now you, if you refresh the app, like this should leave on Optimism. Let me try it. And it says like owner is my wallet. Let's try to switch to Rainbow, and it says like here wrong network, now I switch to Optimism Sepolia, and I update the owner to etg.eth. If I do that, it should tell me to sign the transaction. And yeah, hopefully like once this is confirmed, like now like the whole thing is pointed to Optimism. So if you click this link, it will take you to the Optimism Sepolia block explorer. If you click this address, it will take you to the Optimism Sepolia block explorer. So by just changing this config, like you are already talking with the contract which are deployed on Optimism. Like if you change it to Foundry, it will talk with the local hosting. And yeah, I mean now if you need to ship this to, if you need to ship this app to Vercel, like you could run this command called yarn vercel dash dash yolo prod. So yeah, like this should ask me something like set up your project. Let's have it under my section. Like I need to create a new project. Let's call it ETHIndia demo. Yeah, I mean this takes some time to deploy, but yeah, until like we could see like you guys, not only you guys could also start with some extensions. Like we also have some extension, like if you want to get quickly started with some of the extension, like you have subgraph bounty. So like Scaffold also has this extension, so you already have subgraph built into it. Like we have ERC20 on-chain kit extension. Like if you are planning to also hack with other sponsors, like you could use these extensions as the start. And yeah, I think this will take time to deploy, but yeah, like once this is deployed, like you guys could try it out. And yeah, like make sure you check the docs. Like docs has everything. uh, and we also have the Telegram channel for the ETHIndia folks, so like you could also text me there for any support. Yeah, let's see. So it's still building, and until like maybe I'll do a quick shield of build guild. So basically, if you guys are learning about Ethereum, like you guys should go through the buildguild.com. Like we have a nice curriculum to teach you about Ethereum, like the basics of Ethereum. Like you could follow all the challenges and learn all the stuff about Ethereum, like all the gotchas. And also you build some nice apps like Dice Game Decks, SVG NFT, and then you join Build Guild. Let's see if our app is deployed. Yeah, already. Yeah, yeah, cool, cool. So yeah, I think the app is also like if you go to ETHIndia dash demo dash versal dot app, like you could already try this app out. ETHIndia.demo.versal.app, like you could already see the UI and interact with the contract or even the admin. Like I mean you guys wouldn't be able to set the admin since the admin is atg.it, but yeah, like yeah, use Scaffold-ETH, and we also have the bounties. If you try to build on Scaffold-ETH, like you should apply for the build guild bounty and you might win something.